in the vast expanse of the Milky Way, where countless alien species coexisted in an uneasy truce, there was one unspoken rule that even the most dim-witted of extraterrestrial life forms adhered to: don't mess with humans. It wasn't because humans were particularly strong or fast or technologically advanced. No, it was because humans were batshit crazy. And at the top of the do not fuck with list was one Captain Jack the Reaper Reynolds. Now, you might be wondering what makes this particular human so special. Well, pull up a chair, grab a bottle of Arcturian Mega whiskey, and let me regale you with the tale of how a bunch of idiot aliens royally screwed the pooch by kidnapping the daughter of the most ruthless, unhinged, and downright terrifying human in the known universe. Our story begins on a Tuesday, because let's face it, nothing good ever happens on a Tuesday. Captain Jack was enjoying his retirement on a backwater planet called Earth, tending to his garden and occasionally yelling at the neighborhood kids to get off his lawn. His legendary days of space piracy, intergalactic bounty hunting, and accidentally, on purpose blowing up small moons were behind him. He had settled into a life of peaceful obscurity, content to regale his long-suffering wife with tales of his glory days, and occasionally polish his collection of alien skulls. That is, until he received a holographic message from a group of Zorgaxian pirates. Now Zorgaxians were known throughout the galaxy for two things: their impressively tiny brains and their astonishingly poor life choices. This particular group of Zorgaxians had somehow managed to outdo their entire species in both categories. The hologram flickered to life in Jack's living room, revealing a motley crew of tentacled, bug-eyed aliens. Their leader, a particularly ugly specimen with more eyes than brain cells, cleared his throat analogs and spoke. "Greetings, puny human. We have your offspring." Jack raised an eyebrow, took a sip of his coffee, and wondered if he'd accidentally ingested some of those funky mushrooms growing in his backyard again. The Zorgaxian continued, clearly proud of himself. "We demand a ransom of 1 million galactic credits, or we'll undo something really nasty to her." "Yeah." In the background, Jack could hear his daughter's voice. "Dad, these morons kidnapped me while I was grocery shopping. Can you come pick me up? They smell like week old fish tacos." Jack sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Look, fellas," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "I'm sure you think you've come up with a brilliant plan here, but let me explain something to you. Do you know who I am?" The Zorgaxians looked at each other, confusion evident on their bulbous faces. A human?" Jack laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. It was the kind of laugh that made small animals hide and grown men check their life insurance policies. "Boys, I'm Captain Jack the Reaper Reynolds. Perhaps you've heard of me." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, in a small voice, one of the Zorgaxians squeaked, "The Reaper?" As in, destroyed an entire armada with nothing but a rusty spoon and a bad attitude Reaper. "The very same," Jack grinned, showing far too many teeth. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to return my daughter, apologize profusely, and then spend the rest of your miserable lives looking over your shoulders. Because if you don't," he leaned in close to the hologram, his eyes gleaming with a madness that made the Zorgaxians' exoskeletons rattle, "I will hunt you down, turn your insides into your outsides, and use your Iastox as cocktail stirrers. Capice?" The lead Zorgaxian, showing a rare moment of intelligence, nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. We'll have her back in no time. Oh, and one more thing," Jack added, his voice deceptively casual. "If she's late for dinner, I'm going to be very disappointed." The hologram winked out, leaving Jack alone in his living room. He sighed, cracked his knuckles, and headed to the garage. It looked like retirement would have to wait. Meanwhile, on the Zorgaxian ship, panic had set in. The pirates were running around like headless Gorgon chickens, bumping into each other and screaming incoherently. "We're doomed," wailed one, his tentacles flailing wildly. "The Reaper is coming for us." "I told you this was a bad idea," shrieked another, frantically trying to pack his belongings into a space suitcase. "But no, you said what's the worst that could happen?" "Well, congratulations, the worst is happening." In the midst of the chaos, Jack's daughter, Sarah, sat calmly in her cell, filing her nails and rolling her eyes. She'd grown up hearing stories of her father's exploits, and while she'd always thought he'd exaggerated them for effect, she was beginning to suspect that maybe, just maybe, dear old dad had been holding back. "Hey, tentacle faces," she called out, her voice cutting through the pandemonium. "Any chance I could get some popcorn? This show is getting good." The Zorgaxians froze, staring at her in disbelief. Here they were, facing imminent doom at the hands of the galaxy's most feared human, and his offspring was treating it like dinner theater. The lead Zorgaxian, whose name was Blorp, because of course it was, approached Sarah's cell cautiously. You're not afraid?" Sarah snorted, a sound that managed to convey both amusement and disdain in equal measure. "Afraid? Please, I once saw my dad take down an entire biker gang with nothing but a rubber chicken and a bad joke. She gestured around the ship. This is Tuesday for the Reynolds family." So Blorp's eyes, all 17 of them, widened in horror, but were fearsome pirates. "We've plundered and pillaged across 3 sectors of the galaxy." Sarah leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Let me tell you a story, Blorpy. Once when I was little, I had a nightmare. Dad went in my dream, punched the monster in the face, and then took me out for ice cream. In the dream, she sat back, smirking. So yeah, I'm not too worried about a bunch of overgrown calamari with delusions of grandeur." As if on cue, the ship's alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning, unidentified vessel approaching. Scans indicate, oh shit." Blorp rushed to the bridge, his tentacles leaving slimy trails on the floor in his haste. The main view screen showed a small, unassuming ship heading straight for them. It looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and sheer stubbornness. "That can't be him," Blorp muttered, his voice quavering. "It's just a tiny ship. What threat could it possibly?" His words were cut off as the tiny ship suddenly unleashed a barrage of weapons fire that would have made a Death Star blush. The Zorgaxian ship rocked violently, sending the aliens tumbling across the bridge in a tangle of limbs and curses. "How," screamed Blorp, clinging to his captain's chair for dear life. "That ship shouldn't have enough power to run a toaster, let alone weapons like that." Sarah's voice drifted in from the holding cells, sounding entirely too amused for someone in the middle of a space battle. "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Dad's pretty good with upgrades. He once turned our lawnmower into a hovercraft. Made mowing the lawn a lot more interesting, let me tell you." The ship shuddered again as another volley of impossible firepower slammed into it. Systems began failing left and right, and the Zorgaxians found themselves faced with a choice: surrender or be turned into cosmic confetti. Blorp, showing a wisdom that was frankly shocking for his species, made the call. "All hands prepared to be boarded, and somebody get me a white flag and maybe some clean underwear." Moments later, with a hiss of equalizing pressure, the airlock opened. The Zorgaxians huddled together, trembling as footsteps echoed down the corridor. Into the bridge stepped a completely average-looking human man, with graying hair and a Hawaiian shirt that had seen better days. "All right, you squid-faced yahoos," Jack announced, casually hefting a weapon that looked like it could punch holes in reality itself. "Where's my little girl?" Sarah's voice rang out from the cells. "In here, Dad. And seriously, can we get pizza on the way home? The food here sucks." Jack grinned, an expression that made the Zorgaxians whimper in terror. "Sure thing, sweetie. Just let me take out the trash first." Blorp, summoning courage he didn't know he possessed, and would probably never find again, stepped forward. "Great and terrible Reaper, we surrender. Please have mercy." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Mercy? You kidnapped my daughter, threatened her, and interrupted my retirement. Do you have any idea how long it took me to get my tomato plants just right?" The Zorgaxians collectively gulped, a sound like several toilets being flushed at once. But then Jack did something unexpected. He laughed. Not the terrifying laugh from earlier, but a genuine belly-deep chuckle. "Oh, the looks on your faces, priceless." The aliens stared at him, confusion warring with terror on their features. Jack holstered his weapon, shaking his head in amusement. "Look, boys, I'm not going to kill you. That'd be too easy. Besides, I promised the wife I'd cut back on the wholesale slaughter. Bad for the cholesterol, you know?" Relief washed over the Zorgaxians, quickly followed by suspicion. Surely it couldn't be this easy. Instead, Jack continued, his grin turning wicked. "I'm going to do something far, far worse. What I'm going to let you live with the knowledge that you royally pissed off the deadliest human in the galaxy, and he let you go." He leaned in close to Blorp, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every quivering alien ear. "Every time you hear a bump in the night, every time you see a shadow move out of the corner of your eye, you'll wonder, is this it? Is this when the Reaper comes to collect?" Blorp's eyes rolled back in his head, and he fainted dead away. The other Zorgaxians weren't far behind, their minds unable to cope with the psychological torture Jack had just inflicted. Sarah emerged from the cells, stepping over unconscious aliens with practiced ease. "Nice work, Dad. Though I think you might have broken them." Jack shrugged, throwing an arm around his daughter's shoulders. "Hey, they'll recover. Eventually. Now, how about that pizza?" As they made their way back to Jack's ship, Sarah couldn't help but ask, "So all those stories you used to tell me, they were all true?" Jack's eyes twinkled with mischief. Well, maybe I exaggerated a bit here and there. The thing with the rubber chicken. It was actually a plastic flamingo. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. You know, most dads would have just called the space police or something. So where's the fun in that? Jack replied, firing up the engines. Besides, your mother's been nagging me to get more exercise. This seemed like a good compromise. As they blasted off into the starry expanse, leaving behind a ship full of traumatized Zorgaxians, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of affection for her ridiculous, terrifying, utterly unique father. Sure, he might be the most feared human in the galaxy, but to her, he was just dad. Meanwhile, back on the Zorgaxian ship, Blorp was slowly regaining consciousness. As awareness seeped back into his addled brain, he made a solemn vow. From this day forward, he would dedicate his life to something safe. Something that would keep him far, far away from anything even remotely human-related. Maybe he'd take up knitting. Weeks later, in a seedy space bar on the edge of the galaxy, a group of rough-looking aliens huddled around a table, speaking in hushed tones. But I'm telling you, one of them insisted, his four eyes darting nervously around the room, it's the perfect score. A whole shipment of Arcturian diamonds just ripe for the taking. His companion, a being that looked like the unholy offspring of a cactus and a squid, leaned in. Sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? The first alien hesitated, then mumbled something under his breath. What was that? The cactus squid demanded. Speak up. I said, the four-eyed alien repeated, louder this time. It's being transported on a human ship. The table went silent. Then, as one, every alien present burst into laughter. A human ship? Hooted one, slapping his tentacles on the table. Why don't you just suggest we go skinny dipping in a black hole while we're at it? Yeah, chimed in another, wiping tears of mirth from his compound eyes. Next, you'll be telling us the ship belongs to the Reaper. The four-eyed alien shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Well, actually. The laughter cut off abruptly, replaced by looks of horror. You can't be serious, the cactus squid breathed, his spines wilting in fear. Look, the four-eyed alien said defensively, it's not like he'll be there. He's retired, remember. It's just a standard human crew. Easy pickings. From the shadows of a nearby booth, a figure stirred. The aliens, too caught up in their argument, didn't notice as the newcomer approached their table. Pardon me, gentlemen, came a cheerful voice, but I couldn't help overhearing your fascinating conversation. The aliens turned, finding themselves face to face with a human male sporting a gaudy Hawaiian shirt and a grin that was just a touch too wide to be comfortable. Name's Jack, the human continued, pulling up a chair uninvited. And I think I might be able to help you with your little predicament. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. Something about this human set their danger senses tingling, but they couldn't quite put their appendages on why. You see, Jack went on, casually examining his fingernails, I happen to know a thing or two about that particular ship. In fact, you might say I have inside information. The four-eyed alien, his greed momentarily overcoming his survival instinct, leaned forward eagerly. Really? Do tell. Jack's grin widened, showing far too many teeth. Well, for starters, I can tell you that all the rumors about the Reaper being retired, greatly exaggerated. The color drained from the aliens' faces, those that had faces, anyway. But Jack continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Between you and me, the old boy's getting a bit long in the tooth. Reflexes aren't what they used to be, you know. Why, I bet a clever group of pirates could take him by surprise, easy peasy. The aliens perked up at this, their earlier fear giving way to cautious optimism. You really think so? The cactus squid asked, hope creeping into his voice. Jack nodded sagely. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'll do you one better. I happen to know the ship's exact flight plan. For a modest fee, I could provide you with all the information you need to pull off the haste of the century. The aliens huddled together, whispering excitedly. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Sure, it was risky, but the potential payoff. Finally, they turned back to Jack. You've got a deal, human. Jack clapped his hands together, beaming. Excellent. I just knew you fine gentlemen were men of vision and ambition. Now let's talk details, shall we? For the next hour, Jack regaled the increasingly excited aliens with a meticulously detailed plan. He provided them with the ship's supposed flight path, security protocols, and even the crew's sleep schedules. By the time he finished, the group of would-be pirates was practically salivating at the thought of their impending wealth. And remember, Jack said, leaning in close, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper, the key is to strike fast and hard. The Reaper might be old, but he's still dangerous. You'll want to take him out first. The cactus squid nodded vigorously, his spines quivering with anticipation. Oh, we will. The fool won't know what hit him. Jack's grin widened just a fraction. I'm sure he won't. He stood up, stretching languidly. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. I'd wish you luck, but with a plan this solid, you surely won't need it. As Jack sauntered away, the aliens hurriedly began making preparations. None of them noticed the quiet chuckle that escaped the human's lips as he exited the bar. 2 days later, in the cold vastness of space, a rickety pirate ship lay in wait. Its motley crew of aliens were tense with anticipation, their eyes, all 73 of them, glued to the sensors. There, the four-eyed alien suddenly shouted, right where the human said it would be. And sure enough, a sleek human vessel was cruising through space, its trajectory matching the flight plan Jack had provided perfectly. The cactus squid, who had somehow ended up in charge mostly by virtue of being the pointiest, turned to his crew. Remember the plan. We hit them hard and fast. Take out the Reaper first, then grab the diamonds. Any questions? A timid voice from the back piped up. Are we sure this is a good idea? I mean, it's the Reaper we're talking about. The cactus squid fixed the speaker with a glare that could have wilted a redwood. Cold feet, Zorgaxian. Need I remind you of the riches that await us? Now, man your station before I use you as a toothpick. Chastened, Zorgaxian slunk back to his post, muttering something that sounded suspiciously like I should have listened to my mother and become a space accountant. With a battle cry that sounded like a mix between a dying whale and a rusty garbage disposal, the pirate ship sprang into action. They swooped down on the human vessel, weapons blazing in a spectacular display of firepower and questionable aiming skills. To their shock and delight, the human ship didn't even attempt to evade. It just sat there, taking the barrage like a cosmic punching bag. Ha, crowed the cactus squid. The human was right. They're completely unprepared. Prepare boarding parties. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the pirates poured onto the human ship, weapons at the ready. They charged through the corridors, tentacles and appendages flailing, ready for the fight of their lives. What they found instead was nothing. No crew, no cargo, no diamonds, and most importantly, no Reaper. The ship was completely empty. See, the pirate stood there, confusion rapidly giving way to dawning horror. A familiar voice crackled over the ship's intercom. Well, well, well. Looks like somebody fell for the oldest trick in the book. I'd say I'm disappointed, but honestly, I expected nothing less from a bunch of 2-bit cosmic hoblins with delusions of adequacy. The aliens froze, their blood or various analogous fluids running cold. They knew that voice. That's right, boys, Jack continued, his tone dripping with smug satisfaction. You just walked right into the galaxy's most elaborate mousetrap. Now, I could just space the lot of you and be done with it. But where's the fun in that? The cactus squid, his bravado evaporating faster than water in a supernova, managed to squeak out, what are you going to do to us? Jack's laughter echoed through the empty ship, a sound that would haunt the pirates' nightmares for years to come. Oh, nothing much. I'm just going to let you sit tight while I contact every law enforcement agency, bounty hunter, and general do-gooder in the sector. And I'm sure they'll be very interested to know about the gang of pirates who tried to take on the Reaper. As if on cue, the ship's sensors lit up like a Christmas tree on steroids. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, surrounding them in a net of steel and weaponry. Oh, would you look at that? Jack's voice dripped with false surprise. Seems like the cavalry's arrived. Well, I'd love to stay and chat, but I've got a garden that needs tending. Do give my regards to the space police, won't you? With a final chuckle, the intercom went dead, leaving the pirates to face the consequences of their monumentally poor life choices. Back on Earth, Jack reclined in his favorite lawn chair, sipping a pina colada and admiring his tomato plants. Sarah sat nearby, shaking her head in amused disbelief. You know, Dad, she said, most retired people take up golf or bingo. They don't set up elaborate sting operations to catch interstellar pirates. Jack shrugged, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. What can I say? Old habits die hard. Besides, somebody's got to keep the galaxy's criminal element on their toes. Might as well be me. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Well, at least promise me one thing? What's that, sweetie? Next time you decide to play space cop, can you at least wear something other than that hideous Hawaiian shirt? You're supposed to be the most feared human in the galaxy, not a lost tourist from Miami. Jack clutched his chest in mock offense. I'll have you know this shirt is the height of intergalactic fashion. Why? I once made a Kroglorian warlord surrender just by threatening to make him wear it. As father and daughter dissolved into laughter somewhere in the depths of space, A group of very confused, very scared aliens were learning a valuable lesson in a galaxy full of terrors. Nothing was quite as terrifying as a bored human with a penchant for elaborate pranks. And Captain Jack the Reaper Reynolds, he was just getting started. After all, retirement was overrated and the galaxy wasn't going to keep itself in line. As he sipped his drink and plotted his next adventure, Jack couldn't help but smile. Life was good when you were the deadliest human in the galaxy, especially when no one knew you were really just a dad with a weird sense of humor and too much free time on his hands.